fundamental difficulty Penelope Jackson's team had was the lack of evidence of coercive control and the lack of evidence that she had lost control. And I didn't sit through the trial, and I know what I've read in the papers, which is obviously quite selective. But the jury clearly wasn't persuaded, and the judge in his sentencing remarks talked about how he was quite confident that the attack was premeditated. There historically were a lot of difficulties. The defense used to be that people could use was provocation. So if somebody said something that was sort of really grievously insulting, or did something and you reacted in the heat of the moment, then that was a partial defense. And stereotypically that was used by men who found their wives in bed with somebody else, or in certain cases the nagging defense was used. There were also high profile cases of women who had suffered years and years of domestic abuse, who had killed their partners. And part of the work that was done in changing the law in this area was saying that characteristically women will often react differently to men, that an immediate reaction is a more stereotypically masculine response, whereas women may take longer to react. So they hear the final insult and it takes a while to react. Or more problematically, if they know the partner is much physically stronger than them. In many of these cases, they'd waited for the partner to go to sleep, which then meant they couldn't use the defense of having immediately lost control because they'd waited, or they'd gone and got a weapon, because again, in terms of physical strength, the only way really for a smaller woman to kill a bigger man would be using a weapon, whereas men in domestic violence tend to use, they can use strangling or much more physical force.
Like, how long have we been actually having to have this conversation about differential outcomes? And it just got me thinking as you were going through that really detailed, perhaps adding subtlety to how we understand that case rather than just a kind of quick soundbite sort of analysis, is how we can end up in societies that are marked by such profound sex-based inequalities, right, and that are structured by them, how we can end up in this place where the just administration of legal processes, which I think is what you were trying to say, there are different legal processes here, they were administered in a just way, ends up with fundamentally unjust outcomes. And by that, I don't mean, individual cases and what individual sentences get, but rather when you look across the wash of the last, several hundred years, the sort of punishments and lack of protections that women experience vis-a-vis the over-protections, if you like, of male violence and under policing of it. Do you follow what I mean? So I think it's kind of like we need to look at those one-off instances, both from that forensic point of view, but also then to put that forensic point of view, that legal point of view, that very clear analysis that you gave, also into its wider social context, so that we can think about change and continuity and and how we can change things. Because let's face it, the idea that women are being over policed and underprotected. We've been talking about that since, the 70s.